Today we are hosting Claus from GE Vernova, GE Renewable Energy, old name. Thank you very much, Claus, joining us today.
Thanks, Vedat. Appreciate being here and looking forward to our conversation.
Great to see you and proud to see you in these interviews. We are very happy. And we will talk with Claus about their company and also good projects, good practice in their companies. Today also we will know about Claus more for youngs and for our professionals. This will be very good to listen and know about him. I want to start about yourself, Claus. Can you please introduce yourself to us?
Well, I can. So I live in Germany. I'm not German. I'm actually Danish, so born in Denmark, but have lived in Germany for many years, and I've lived in other places around the world. So speak 4 different languages, which is always an advantage that you have that opportunity. I currently work for GE Vernova. I am the Senior Executive Environment, Health and Safety Separation Management Office Leader. So really looking in how we can separate and become a standalone company by the 2nd of April this year. So it's been a very tough year to kind of figure out all of the things that you need to have in place before you can actually spin and become a independent company on the New York Stock Exchange. So that has been really interesting. Mm-hmm. And also very, for me personally, a learning curve, very steep upwards, which is always good. So before that, I ran the renewables business that is now going to be part of the Vernova business, which is all of the energy companies. And before that, I spent almost 10 years with one of our major competitors, Siemens. So yeah, I've been working in very large corporations, had my own business prior to that, and also had the opportunity to spend close to 20 years in the Danish Armed Forces in multiple and various positions in country and also abroad. So I have been doing a lot of different stuff in my career, and I always like to go places that kind of challenging, where you can influence and impact individuals, but also organizations. So I think that's, in short, about myself.
Second question is about your motivation to start this job. I want to ask you.
Well, I kind of alluded to it in my previous story about myself. I think what really motivates me is always the challenge. So my current role is nothing but a sheer challenge, because you're up against time. The only thing that's constant is time. That hasn't changed. So we knew that we had to be ready with this by April 2nd. And anything up to that point in time just had to fall in line. So the team has been working extremely hard to get to where we are today. So first and foremost, that for me is the motivation, but it's also the thing that I'm really, I think, proud of, and also very happy to have the ability to work with such amazing team members to kind of get it done. So I think that's the primary motivation, and it's been like that all through my career, is also looking for challenges where people normally don't want to go. That's what kind of triggers it.
Thank you very much. And my third question is about future problems and future of health, safety, environment. What do you personally think should be done globally to improve the future of health, safety, environment? About technological way, about the problems, about the globality. What do you think?
I think that the world around us is just changing very, very quickly. You know, if we had spoken in 2019, nobody would have ever predicted that you're going to get COVID. shortly after that, you got the Ukraine war. Now you have the conflict in the Gaza. That is all impacting us, and I think that is really some of the things that is of course difficult to handle on a day-to-day basis. But to your question, how can you actually do stuff differently? And I would use one of the things that I kind of started up back in 2009, which was the Global Wind Organization. The Global Wind Organization for me is the testament to how you can actually be successful in driving an organization to become the standard that everybody follows. That to me is really a milestone, an accomplishment that is linked to many people's hard work. And again, what is it all about? It's about creating a safety training standard, not only for, I would say, the normal safety training, but also technical trainings and a lot more that is uniformly across the entire globe.
Yeah.
With one purpose, to heighten the safety barrier and the level of training and education that we give our frontline people to get to the same level. But more importantly, also bringing training providers to the same level. By doing that, you have now created an organization that have had, because of its success, the ability to influence national legal stakeholders to take out pieces of legislation in order to give you the freedom to do what is right, because you have demonstrated that you have control over your destiny. And that is, for me, something that we should do a lot more of, because it has proven two things. One, we as an industry then control our own destiny. And the second part of that, our regulatory stakeholders respect that the industry is working together with them to make sure that we keep each other at the highest level possible and making it less complex for everybody. And that, to me, is something that, first and foremost, I'm proud of having had the opportunity to be part of, and still am, but also see how quickly that has grown to become recognized globally.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. And I want to also curious about your company because I work also for GE Renewable Energy before, and we are making competition between the professional from different projects about good practice. And I want to ask you for future and also for background of the company. What are the projects GE Vernova plans in the field of health, safety, environment for the future also?
Well, I think the occupational health and safety piece for GE, and also continuing on for GE Vernova, has really been and still is on the forefront of how we operate as an organization. That's not going to change. But I think what we have learned over the last years with our current CEO, Larry Kolb, is really you have to use the lean principles in order to drive improvements. And if you drive improvements, you have to drive improvements with the front line, because the front line are the ones that are going to dictate how you do the right things. That has been extremely valuable. It's been a valuable lesson, and that's going to continue. So I think that the lean methodology on how we drive improvements in our organization is going to be one of the key parameters. The other part is, I know that the new EHS leader really has this fatality-free operation at the forefront of what he wants to then become even better at. Because now we have to understand that we are still working with individuals that make mistakes. You know, every human being makes mistakes every hour. We can't take that out of the equation. So we have to learn. We have to ensure that whatever we do to manage our risks become better. The systematics around simple rules are very clear to everybody that works for us is going to be things that are going to be on the forefront. Another big
Yes.
piece is the whole topic around digitalization. You can only do this if you have the ability to learn in real time. With machine learning and AI, we now have an opportunity to drive changes in real time, and you learn in real time. I think
Exactly.
luckily I was part of a project that actually created the first ever
Mhm.
machine that had that capability to do that uh, with no human intervention. And that's now been moved on to a version 2, and now there are others that are kind of following along. But you have to do that. If you don't do that, then you are kind of losing your perspective. So I think the digitalization is going to be a massive issue. The whole lean concept of going to where the work is done to learn and then change, and then
Mhm.
really take that into the overarching goal, which is having fatality-free operations. And if you work in an energy industry that I'm in right now, you know that that is not an easy job, because you do all of the things that people would consider to be extremely dangerous, and it is.
Yeah.
So you have to also understand that. So a lot of stuff is going on, and a lot of interesting stuff, I would say, is going to come. But the
Yeah.
underlying the underlying approach that we don't compromise on this is going to continue for us as a company.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And my next question, before the next question, I want to remind our audience they can ask their questions. This is an interactive. I remind you, you can ask your questions from LinkedIn and YouTube. We will be very happy to uh, introduce your questions also to Klaus. I want to ask about civil society. Do you think that companies should carry out projects with other organizations, other companies, and with civil society? What do you think, Klaus?
My fundamental belief is that environment, health, and safety is not a company's right to own, because at the end of the day, every individual that gets hurt on a job should
Uh-huh.
be everybody's business. Because at the end of the day, if you don't, you're going to end up in a situation where the regulators are going to determine how you should do your job. And I alluded to it when we talk about the Global Wind Organization, which is literally a testimony to how an industry came together, built a very strong platform that now today everybody trusts to do the right thing. And I
Yeah.
think that to me is a very good example of things that we should do even more, and also in other areas. But it does not take away the underlying issue, is that having your risk managed where the work is being done is
Mhm.
still at the forefront. And I think sometimes people tend to forget that. And I always tell people, EHS professionals only have one job, that is to get out of a job. Because in a financial terminology, you're just an overhead cost allocation. You provide zero value add to the bottom line. And you have to be very mindful of that. And if you don't understand that, and if you don't take that seriously, then you end up being exactly that which you don't want to be, which is going to be a financial discussion.
Mhm.
So with all of the things that are happening around us right now, with machine learning and AI as an example, we know that in our line of work, when you want to drive culture change,
Mhm.
a machine or AI can't do that. And they will never have that capabilities anytime soon, if ever. And I think that is a reality. So there's always going to be work for us to do, but we have to be very mindful everything that we do has to matter. If it doesn't, then you're just going to end up having a conversation that you don't want. And I think that's important. And then the second part of it is no civil society today, if we just talk about energy security, cannot do without having a very close cooperation with multiple companies. Because if anything that we learned out of the Ukraine conflict is that all of a sudden energy becomes a political instrument. And when you have that, you also need to make sure that you help civil society, you and me, in our day-to-day living, that we have the necessity of, water, heat, electricity, and stuff like that. And that is really crucial. So I think we are getting closer to the civil society, and I think it's in everybody's best interest to keep doing that. But we have to earn our rights to do so, which is where I used global wind as a good example.
Yeah, good example. Yeah, and for example, I think we are staying very late to teach adults about workplace safety and their health, because I believe the vision and safety culture need to be gained in their childness. We need to educate people in their childness to make a wisdom about safety. So maybe with civil society and governments can focus about this issue. We can teach our child about their safety in schools, in public, and also in their home. So when they being adults, they will not need too much education to improve their safety culture. Uh, so thank you very much for your answer. And I want to also ask global problems of health, safety, environment professionals.
I think that there are a number of aspects where I struggle because people are being trained to look in one direction. So that could be different kind of education. It could be NEBOSH, whatever, you want to talk about, or certified safety professionals if you go to the US and stuff like that. People are trained to go and look in one direction, to follow a logical step. But that's all good. But it doesn't help the underlying problem on how you drive culture. It gives you tools, but it does not take away the fundamental issue that we are faced with. Is I've talked about it earlier. We make mistakes. You and I, everybody makes 6.5 mistakes every hour. You can't change it. It's given. So we have to understand our predominant job is to ensure that whatever happens when people do make those mistakes, that the outcome of that does not turn into a serious injury or fatality. That's one parameter. The other parameter is our short-term memory capability is very limited. When I talk about short-term memory capability, we're talking the first 20 to 30 seconds of where you make decisions. The male population has the ability to keep 3 to 7 items in a row. So they can digest 3 to 7 items and then actually go do it. They can replicate it. Female population are from birth clever than the male population. They can handle 5 to 9. So you can say, hey, let's just hire a female, then the accident rate will go down. And inherently that would be true because they have a higher capability of keeping in their short-term memory things in a sequence. But the learning out of that is if we try to make things that are highly complex, even more complex, not understanding the parameters that the individual has, we are bound to fail. And that's really where you drive culture change. That's one side of the story. The other side of the story is I find very few EHS professional or leaders that have a good enough understanding of how to drive a business. I mentioned it earlier. My job, my only job, is to get out of a job. I have no other job. When I talk to my CFO, he keeps telling me, you're just an overhead cost allocation. You provide zero value add to the bottom line. You provide zero value add to my shareholders. Then you can argue, but that isn't right. In a pure financial context, it is absolutely right.
Yeah.
From a human aspect, not so right. I get that. But from a pure financial point of view, that's absolutely true. And this is where I find it stunning that people are really not very well educated to understand how a business is run. Because if you understand how a business is run, you can also use your influence to hit the right spot in the organization. And that requires a lot of insights and maybe a different background, training, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's an area where I absolutely see a need in our profession to enhance ourselves.
Great. Your vision and your research is very good. Thank you very much for your knowledge and your answers. And I want to ask my last question, and our friends, if you want to ask, they can write on chat their questions. Can you share with us a pleasant memory you had in your profession, maybe your profession or your personal life?
I think that there's been a lot. I would say one of the very good memories that I had was actually working with the team that I have right now, managing this very difficult task within a very short time frame, where everybody had doubts that we were able to pull it through because the task at hand was just so big. But just by getting the right people with different backgrounds into the same room and align on how to do it was really a pleasant experience. And I think that also is a testament to how you can actually drive a lot of change by just having the courage to then take people on board that does not necessarily have the same background, the same skill set as you do, but the broader skill set is one of the things that really drove that. And then I would say another pleasant moment was when the renewables business had a massive improvement based out of a lot of stuff that we did in 2020, 2021, where we, in 1 year, took out close to 90% of all of our severe injuries and fatalities compared to the year before, and close to half of our recordable events, by just focusing on really managing our risk in a very different way by utilizing digitalization, different leadership trainings, but more importantly, a very different engagement with the front line. And it paid off. And that is really something that I'm really proud of. And I always have conversations, people that was part of this from the beginning that still talks about it. So things that stays with individual is things that always stays with me, that I'm happy always to have a conversation about, but more importantly also makes me smile.
Yeah,
That's why I want to do the job that I do, because those are the moments that you cherish.
Yes, very nice. It is very good to see you are doing this job and you are improving our profession in a good way. I'm very happy inviting all these leaders as you, and learning your vision and your patience. that's a great opportunity for the young and also our professionals to having a passion, having a plans for future for themselves. Thank you very much for joining us today. We made a communication and international check, internet check before the meeting. I'm sorry for connection problems. It is not about us. And for future, we will continue to inviting leaders from influencers, company leaders, and different executions leaders. And we are very happy welcoming Claus Rose today from GE Vernova. And thank you very much to also our execution, HSE execution, to supporting us on this project. I am doing this project individually, but they are supporting in a good way with their networks. And Claus, do you want to share something with our audience? And then we will close this interview.
Yeah, so I'm just, if there are anybody having any questions or anything that they want to talk about, I'm happy to have whatever questions people may have.
Yeah. Maybe on LinkedIn they can connect with you.
Absolutely, they are more than happy to. And again, I meant when I said that, we have to remember keeping people out of harm's way is everybody's job.
Yeah.
And they can be, that's not, company property.
Yeah.
It's every man's wisdom. And I think that's what we owe ourselves, is really making sure that we share best practices and we learn from each other, because if we don't, then we get to a point where we don't want to be, which is where regulators tell us how to go do about our day-to-day work, and then we may not like the outcome. I think there's been a lot of examples like that in the past where industries haven't understood the message, and there are great opportunities for us to drive it in any direction that we want, but we just have to be, I would say, very knowledgeable about how to keep improving for the greater good of the people that spent the majority of their life working for GE or any other company around the globe. Because at the end of the day, they are the ones that makes everything else possible. Without them, nothing would happen. And I think you just have to always remember that. I think that would be my final words on that side.
Thank you very much.
But again, if there are questions, then happy to take them. And if not, you're always free to connect with me.
Yeah, they can also ask their question on YouTube channel under the video or on LinkedIn invitation. So they are free to ask their questions after these meetings. Believe me, they are watching this video. This is an encyclopedical interview, I believe, for future. We are creating also a website for the leaders, and they can also see your biography and your connection on their on these videos on the platform. So I believe good companies is working with good leaders as you. Today we learned that GE Vernova is having a very good future plan, and I work for GE Vernova before and see their quality about health, safety, environment, and I see the leadership. Thank you very much, Claus Rose, for being a leader for this great company with your great vision. And have a nice night to everybody. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Vedat, for having me. And thanks to everybody.